You don't owe clarity to those who thrive in darkness. Your light isn't meant to justify itself to the blind. There comes a moment in every man's journey when he realizes not everyone wants to understand him. Some will challenge you, others will try to control you, and some will confuse you until you question your own strength. You've been taught your whole life to communicate better, explain yourself, be transparent, as if understanding is guaranteed when you bare your soul. But what if I told you some people aren't confused at all? They see exactly who you are. And that's the problem. They don't misunderstand you by accident. They twist your truth on purpose because your clarity threatens the lies they cling to. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your calm makes their chaos louder. These aren't men lacking intelligence. They lack good intent. They don't want your truth. They want to drain your spirit until you shrink to fit their bitterness. And here's the trap you keep explaining. You keep justifying. You defend your choice, values, and boundaries as if your worth is on trial, as if they'll say, "Now I get it." But they won't, and they never meant to. Their goal is to dominate, not to understand. Your willingness to explain becomes their weapon, twisting your truth into ammunition against you. It's time to stop, not out of bitterness, but from wisdom, knowing you don't argue with shadows. You don't need to defend yourself to those who choose to misunderstand. You don't justify your light to those addicted to darkness. There's a reason your silence unsettles them more than your words ever could. Silence is where your power lives, where your boundaries speak, and where your dignity becomes untouchable. This isn't a message of anger, but of clarity, reclaiming your energy from those who thrive on confusion, projection, and emotional chaos. This is a call to emotional wisdom, to psychological boundaries, to quiet self-respect in a world addicted to noise and reaction. If you're exhausted mentally, emotionally, spiritually from explaining yourself to those unworthy of your truth, stay with me. In this video, we'll uncover why some demand endless explanations, why silence is your strongest shield, and how to reclaim your inner peace, your self-worth and strength to walk unapologetically. Begin with this resolute choice. Stop explaining to the demons in others and start remembering who you are. Not every attack on you is personal. Some don't strike at you for who you are, but for what you reflect back to them. Let this sink in. You're not the enemy. You're the mirror. When someone carries unresolved pain, unhealed insecurities, or lingering chaos, your peace becomes unbearable to them. Your boundaries feel like defiance. Your growth feels like a threat. Why? Because your light forces them to face their own darkness. They don't hate your success. They resent what it reminds them they haven't achieved. They don't envy your confidence. They're unsettled by how it highlights their self-doubt. They don't attack your voice because it's wrong, but because it's too clear. And clarity terrifies the emotionally unsteady. This is what psychology calls projection. When someone can't face their inner truth, they push it outward. They label you arrogant when you're simply confident. They call you selfish for setting boundaries. They brand you difficult when you stop pleasing them. If you're not vigilant, if you lack emotional discipline, you'll start believing their lies. You'll mistake their projections for reality. You'll doubt yourself, shrink your presence, and question your instincts, not because you're wrong, but because someone's unhealed pain casts their darkness onto you. That's how demons manifest in people, not as monsters in movies, but as subtle manipulators in everyday life. They smile to your face while quietly eroding your confidence. They feign care, but secretly compete. Their advice drips with their limitations, not your potential. The worst part, they often wear familiar faces. It could be parents, siblings, partners, friends, or bosses. It's easy to spot a stranger trying to tear you down, but it's harder to admit the one wounding your soul might be someone you love. If you're serious about self-mastery, about guarding your psychological boundaries, you must face this truth. Not everyone in your life has the emotional capacity to support your growth. Not everyone who says, "I care," truly wants your evolution. Some prefer the old, weaker version of you, easily manipulated, controlled, and pressured to conform. When you change, they're triggered. They say you've changed, that you think you're better than them. But that's the point, isn't it? You have changed. You're not meant to stay the same. Growth is the ultimate aim. Their shadows, envy, unresolved anger, or stagnant souls can't handle your transformation. So, what do? They provoke you. They bait you. They drag you into arguments. When that fails, they play the victim. This isn't love. It's emotional warfare. The only way to win is to not engage. The moment you explain your boundaries to someone who benefits from your lack of them, you've already lost. You're speaking truth to those who thrive on manipulation. You're reasoning with those who live in delusion. You're offering vulnerability to those who see compassion as a tool to exploit. No matter how carefully you choose your words, no matter how many times you explain, they won't listen. They filter everything through their own pain. They'll twist every truth you share into a weapon against you. That's why you must stop explaining, not from pride, but from wisdom. You're not here to fix what they refuse to face. You're not here to carry shadows that don't belong to you. You're here to walk in your truth quietly, steadfastly, unapologetically. If that truth unsettles them, so be it. That's not your burden. It's their mirror to face. There's a subtle tragedy in the lives of men with good hearts and strong spirits. They believe that if they explain enough, open up fully, and clarify their intentions, they'll be understood. But they don't see that explaining to someone who's already judged you isn't clarity, it's self-erasure. It starts quietly. You speak your truth. They distort it. You set a boundary. They call it selfish. You step away from their chaos. And suddenly you're the villain in their story. So you explain. You justify. You defend. You replay every conversation in your mind, wondering if you could have said it differently. You soften your truth to make it more palatable, hoping they'll finally see your heart. But they won't. They never intended to. Every time you try to appease them, a piece of you fractures. You start questioning, am I too harsh? Am I overreacting? Should I let it go? Maybe it's my fault. This isn't just exhaustion, it's spiritual erosion. The slow unraveling of your self-respect as you chase approval from those who are emotionally numb. This happens when you forget your truth doesn't need permission to exist. If you're not careful, you'll waste years in this cycle, explaining your kindness to the cruel, justifying your boundaries to the selfish, defending your peace to those addicted to chaos. No matter how eloquently you explain, they won't receive it. Why? Because they don't listen to understand. They listen to refute. They wait for cracks in your conviction, for weaknesses in your voice, to strike, manipulate, and make you doubt your own reality. You owe no explanation for your peace to those who've chosen war. Let that be your new boundary. This doesn't mean you grow cold or closed off, but that you wield your energy with wisdom. True emotional mastery knows not every why deserves an answer. Not every demand for your heart deserves your reasons. Not everyone who challenges your choices comes from love or respect. Some act from envy, others from control, and some from their own projected pain. Explaining too much only fuels their illusion that they're entitled to your clarity. But they're not. You have the right to stay silent. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to say, I won't explain myself to those who weaponize my words. This isn't defensiveness, it's psychological self-defense. Silence, born from dignity, not ego, is the mark of profound maturity. It declares I know who I am. I know why I choose what I do. And I no longer seek understanding from those who profit from my confusion. This quiet strength separates the reactive from the wise. It's what Stoics knew long before psychology named it. Don't waste breath arguing with those who thrive on disruption. You're not here to convince, you're here to live your truth, your values, your future. The moment you stop explaining, justifying, or defending to those who don't honor your truth, you reclaim time. You reclaim clarity. You reclaim power. Power that doesn't need to shout, prove, or beg. Power that simply walks with calm eyes and steady steps. Now pause for a hard, honest question. Why do you keep explaining to those who've shown they don't care to understand? Why do you pour your energy into those who take without giving back? The answer isn't what you think. It's not weakness. It's not a lack of reason. It's because deep down, you've been conditioned to believe you must fix being misunderstood. You tie your worth to being liked, mistaking acceptance for safety. When someone questions your choices, beliefs, or identity, you panic, you explain, you justify, you dive into emotional chaos, seeking peace in a room full of noise. But here's the wake-up call. You can't find peace by negotiating with turmoil. Peace comes when you shield your energy from it. This is where emotional discipline becomes vital, or you'll keep draining yourself trying to convince those who are emotionally bankrupt. They don't understand you and don't want to. They prod, provoke, and twist because the moment you explain, they've won, not because your logic fails, but because your attention is their currency. Understand this, your attention is power. Whoever controls your emotional focus controls your inner state. When someone stirs you up, pushes you to justify or prove yourself, they're hijacking your energy. That's how they win, by pulling you into their arena, away from your center, chasing external validation over inner peace. That trade is always a loss. Some thrive on your discomfort, feeling powerful when you scramble to defend yourself. They feel righteous when you lower your standards to match their chaos. They feel seen when you explain your soul just to soothe their ego. But that's not connection, it's control. The more you feed it, the more you lose yourself. Here's what most won't admit: over-explaining has a hidden reward. It feels productive. It tricks you into thinking you're in control, as if the right words will make them understand this time, but they won't, because they're not driven by curiosity, they're driven by ego. The ego doesn't care about truth, it only wants to win. Every time you loop through explaining and justifying, you fuel their game while draining your spirit. This is where your self-worth must rise. Not everyone deserves your truth. Not everyone has a right to your inner reasons. Not everyone is worthy of standing before your clarity. You have the right to keep it sacred. You have the right to protect your space. You have the right to say, "This conversation doesn't serve my peace." That's not rudeness. It's psychological strength. It's the mark of a disciplined mind. The most powerful men don't explain themselves to everyone. They act quietly. They preserve their energy. They withdraw. Instead of arguing with those addicted to misunderstanding, it's time you joined their ranks. You've spent too long watering dead plants, explaining to those unready to hear, and giving your peace to those who never meant to protect it. From now on, make this your creed. I owe no one an explanation for the choices I make for my peace. When you feel the urge to justify, prove, or defend, take a deep breath. Remember, you weren't placed here to perform for those secretly wishing for your failure. Deep down, you explain because you crave validation. You want someone to say, "I get you. I see you. You're right." That hunger for affirmation is human, but it's also the most dangerous trap you can fall into. When your peace hinges on others' understanding, you're no longer free. We're taught from childhood that being understood means safety. If others approve of your thoughts, choices, or dreams, you're secure. But here's the truth. No one tells you most people only approve when you make them comfortable. And comfort rarely comes from truth. It comes from conformity, compliance, fitting their mold. What happens when you break that mold? When you grow, when you outgrow their limits, you become unrelatable. You become uncontrollable. You become a threat. Instead of adapting, many respond not with weapons, but with blame, silence, or manipulative questions. Why are you acting like this? When did you get so cold? You've changed. They're not confused, they're uncomfortable because you no longer beg for their approval. Yet you still return. You still explain. You still hope this time they'll see you. But be honest, if someone truly wanted to understand, they'd ask better questions by now. If they cared about your heart, they wouldn't wield your vulnerabilities as weapons. So why do you keep going back? Because you've mistaken validation for love. That's the most painful illusion to shatter. But it must break. You can outgrow others simply by choosing peace over performance. When you do, they'll call you selfish, distant, or cold. But choosing peace doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear that you don't need their validation to know your worth. Clear that you won't be emotionally manipulated by those who feed on your insecurities. This is the turning point in your life. You can keep explaining to those who listen only to judge, or you can accept that understanding isn't required and your truth doesn't need applause to be real. True emotional mastery is knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, because your energy deserves preservation, not persuasion. Now let's talk about silence. There's a sacred power in not responding. When you stay quiet before those expecting a reaction, you're saying you're no longer under their control. Silence doesn't fuel their games. It doesn't validate their drama. It denies them the satisfaction of seeing you break. Instead, it leaves them alone with themselves, and for those who crave control, that's unbearable. So don't mistake silence for weakness or peace for passivity. Sometimes, walking away in silence is the strongest move you can make. No grand explanations, no loud exits, just a firm choice. I no longer answer to those who choose to misjudge me. That, my friend, is the dawn of emotional freedom. That's the start of soul discipline. Your life isn't a courtroom. Your choices aren't on trial. Your truth doesn't need a defense attorney. You don't need validation to breathe, applause to heal, or permission to be free. All you need is the courage to stop explaining and the wisdom to see who's unworthy of your words. Let me share a story. There was a man, strong, wise, and full of light. Not perfect, but authentic. He cared deeply, listened intently, and gave more than he took. Yet he had a flaw. He wanted to be understood by those who never intended to see him. Their words were charming, their presence magnetic. But behind the mask was someone who didn't value his true self. They valued how he made them feel. He thought explaining would bridge the gap. So he shared his past, his wounds, his principles. He explained why he needed space, why boundaries mattered, why chaos triggered his unease. Each time, they nodded, but later twisted his words. You're too intense. You overthink. You're not who you used to be. So he tried harder, softened his tone, excused their behavior, told himself they meant well, that he needed to be more patient, more forgiving, more clear, until one day he realized a chilling truth. He wasn't communicating, he was begging. The more he explained, the more he lost himself. That's how emotional theft happens, not with fists, but with subtle thefts of your truth, cloaked as attempts to fix things. This isn't love. It's not even misunderstanding. It's what psychology calls a trauma bond. A cycle where you keep seeking affection from the one undermining your spirit. And it's more common than you think. It might not be a lover. It could be a parent guilting you for having needs. It could be a boss who praises you one day and tears you down the next. It's the friend who calls only when they need something, then accuses you of being distant when you don't comply. In every case, the trap is the same. You keep explaining to earn respect. But respect isn't born from over-explaining. It's built on self-respect and reinforced by firm boundaries. If someone can't meet you at the level of honesty you offer, if they use your openness as leverage, if they make being yourself feel like a burden, you're not in a relationship, you're in an emotional service contract. This is where emotional discipline takes charge. Sometimes, love needs the sharp edge of reason to cut through toxicity. You can't always navigate chaos with feelings alone. You must see it, name it, and walk away. No matter how sweet the memories or how much potential you see in them, their apologies don't outweigh your peace. If someone forces you to endlessly justify who you are, they're not confused. They're comfortable with you doubting yourself. The chilling truth is, they'll keep going until you stop responding. You can't change those who profit from misjudging you. You can't heal in a place that keeps reopening your wounds. So how did the man in our story heal? He stopped explaining. No more long messages to clarify his intent. No more defending his need for space. No more trying to make them see him. Instead, he embraced silence and rebuilt himself within it. He realized peace isn't something you earn by performing. It's your birthright. It's your standard. Those who don't respect it lose access to you, not out of hatred, but because you've learned to love yourself enough to guard your energy. Maybe you're that man, or you're still caught in a version of this cycle. But the ending can change when you stop explaining and start reclaiming control. Your self-worth isn't something you prove, it's something you protect. No one, no matter how close, charming, or familiar, has the right to demand you justify your peace. One day, you'll stand silent, not from fear, but from strength, not screaming, not arguing, not collapsing, just still, because you've learned silence isn't weakness, it's a boundary cloaked in calm. It's power that doesn't need noise to prove itself. In a world addicted to drama, your silence will unsettle them. They're used to your emotional chaos, your strong reactions, your nervous system in their grip. So, when you refuse to engage, explain, or speak, they panic because silence isn't empty. It's filled with self-respect. It's the signal that their schemes no longer work, that their access to your energy is revoked. This is the birth of psychological boundaries, not just telling others what they can't do, but deciding what you won't tolerate, won't respond to, won't sacrifice, even if it costs you connection. Boundaries don't need to be loud. They don't require declarations or ultimatums. They're felt through your consistency, your refusal to over-explain, your protection of your time, your departure with dignity instead of drama. But remember, people don't test your boundaries by accident. They push to see if your silence is solid or fleeting. They know if they prod hard enough, hit the right wound, or trigger the right guilt. You might cave. You might explain again. You might try to prove you're not the villain. If that happens, the cycle restarts. So choose their understanding or your uncompromised peace. You can't have both. It takes soul discipline to stay silent when every fiber of you wants to clarify. It takes maturity to let go of being right and choose freedom instead. Emotional wisdom means recognizing this argument won't solve anything. It only steals your energy. Silence becomes not just a tool, but a philosophy, a daily commitment to preserving your peace, even if it costs you approval or the illusion of harmony. Be honest. You don't have to explain your boundaries to those who've proven they won't respect them. You're not obligated to teach others how to treat you forever. Sometimes, you don't need a louder message, you need a stronger exit. Those who truly value you don't need constant reminders. They don't test your silence. They honor it. Those who don't were never listening. To begin with, they were scheming. So, shift your mindset from now on. You don't shout to be heard. You raise your standards to be respected. You don't over-explain. You outgrow. That's the Stoic lesson. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of clarity. Clarity comes when you stop reacting to every noise around you, responding only to what aligns with the noble man within. If you're caught in an emotional, relational, or spiritual storm, pause, step back, and let silence be your shield. Instead of explaining, let your distance speak louder than any argument could. When you choose silence over defense, you shift from reaction to invincibility. That's how you protect your energy without uttering a word. There's a quiet tragedy unfolding around us, good men, with kind hearts and deep empathy, pour their energy into being understood, keeping the peace, or sparing others' feelings, even at their own expense. But here's what no one told you. Growing up, you don't owe anyone your peace. Not your partner, not your parents, not your past, not your pain. Your peace isn't a bargaining chip. It's not a favor to grant when someone's ego is bruised. It's your sacred refuge, the torch of your life, your duty to protect. Yet so many of us give it away like it's worthless. We say yes when we mean no. We stay when we should leave. We explain ourselves endlessly until we're exhausted, drained, and resentful. Why? Because we're taught being good means always showing up, that love means being soft, that spirituality means self-sacrifice. True spiritual discipline isn't trading your joy for others. It's knowing your inner peace is sacred ground, not open to all. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed in futile conversations just to avoid being misjudged? How often have you justified your worth to those who mock it behind your back? How many times have you traded your peace to ease others' chaos? That's not peacekeeping. It's self-betrayal. The truth is, those who resent you for guarding your peace are the ones who exploited you when you didn't have it. Let that sink in. When you set psychological boundaries, when you stop reacting, stop over-explaining, stop letting your soul be an open target for every opinion, something shifts. Those who value your peace draw closer. Those who need your chaos to control you call you selfish. That's when you know you're on the path to healing. It's hard to admit, but most won't say it. Some people don't miss the real you. They miss the version that tolerated their disrespect. They miss the you who apologized for having boundaries, the you who stayed quiet in the face of disrespect, the you who explained your pain to those who turned it into a weapon. But that version of you is gone, and it's not coming back, because you now know your energy isn't free for the taking. Your silence isn't agreement, it's a stand. Your peace isn't negotiable. This is emotional wisdom in action, choosing not to fight every battle. Not because you're weak, but because you know your peace is too valuable to waste on those who don't cherish it. You're not here to bare your soul to everyone. You're not here to fix how others see your choices. You're not here to save people from the consequences of their own misunderstandings. You're here to live in your truth, to stand firm in your values, to walk your path unapologetically. When someone demands an explanation, let your calm be the answer. When they test your silence, let your distance be the response. When they try to guilt you for choosing peace, remember, you don't owe them your chaos to prove you care. You don't owe them your pain to prove loyalty. You don't owe them your energy, especially when they use it against you. Peace isn't isolation, it's discernment. It's knowing who deserves access to your inner world and who only seeks to control it. It's a deep self-respect that makes anything threatening your peace too costly to entertain. At some point in your journey, silence stops being a tactic and becomes your state of being. It's no longer about avoiding conflict. It's a declaration, I'm done with chaos. This stillness isn't passive, it's powerful, grounded, unshakable. They don't understand that you're not silent from fear. You're not withdrawing from weakness. You're not distant from coldness. You're silent because you've mastered what they haven't begun to grasp. The loudest statement you'll ever make is in absolute stillness. When you stop reacting, something miraculous happens. You see clearly. You see who needs your chaos to maintain their power, who thrives on your emotional unrest to feel in control, who only feels close when you're breaking. Suddenly, you don't miss them anymore. Because when you embrace silence, you no longer crave their apologies, their closure, or their validation. Why? Because peace doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It simply exists, like an ocean beneath a storm, calm, deep, unmoved. This is the essence of emotional wisdom, knowing not every opinion deserves a response. Not every accusation needs your defense. Not every wound needs reopening to prove a point. Sometimes, The most healing thing you can do is nothing, no retaliation, no exposure, no words, just presence, a quiet confidence that says, you may think you've won because I don't fight back, but I'm not leaving because I lost. I'm leaving because I've won my peace. This is self-mastery, the rarest form of strength in a world obsessed with reaction. When you reach this point, your absence speaks louder than words ever could. They'll feel you're not avoiding them, you're simply done with their drama. You're not ignoring them, you're refusing to repeat old cycles. That's what unsettles them. They've fed on your habits, your guilt, your need to explain, fix, or react. But when you choose silence, they lose access not just to your presence, but to the control they once held over your mind. That's why this silence is so dangerous to them. It's not about winning an argument anymore. It's about transcending the fight entirely. You no longer care about being right. You care about being free. That shift terrifies those who want you small, broken, or controlled. Your silence is your refusal to play a rigged game. It's your escape from the emotional trap they want you caged in. It's where your inner peace echoes louder than their opinions ever could. If you're wondering if this silence means you've given up, let me remind you this isn't surrender, it's sovereignty. It resonates stronger than anything you've ever said. There's a moment in your journey when everything shifts. You stop shrinking. You stop softening your voice to spare fragile egos. You stop diluting your truth to make it easier for others to swallow. You stop apologizing not from arrogance, but because you've seen the trap. Every apology you gave for being yourself was a silent permission for others to keep disrespecting you. You've apologized for growing, for stepping back, for needing space, for saying no, for walking away. You've apologized for the most sacred parts of you, your honesty, your clarity, your standards. But now you know better. The world doesn't need a muted version of you. It needs you raw, unfiltered, unashamed. The truth is, you were never too much. They just wanted you small to feel bigger. Your emotional depth exposes their shallowness. Your clarity reveals their confusion. Your calm makes their chaos unbearable. So they label you cold, rigid, selfish, or distant. But you were never those things. You were simply done sacrificing your worth on the altar of their insecurities. This is the start of psychological detachment, not from love or connection, but from their expectations, from the emotional blackmail that says you must dim yourself or lose them. Now you see, losing those who demand you betray yourself isn't loss, it's liberation. You no longer feel guilt for raising your standards. You no longer explain why your peace matters. You no longer apologize for cutting access to those who weaponized your kindness. You don't apologize for setting boundaries they were never taught to respect. You don't apologize for seeing through their manipulation and choosing your mental strength instead. You don't apologize for choosing inner peace over external approval. This is emotional wisdom, at its strongest, mastering not just your feelings, but how you respond to those who exploit them. Let them call you what they want. Let them spin their story. Let them play the victim while you simply choose not to be their pawn. Because here's what most never grasp: your freedom looks like rebellion to those still caged. Living unapologetically leads to different choices. You stop engaging in fights you didn't start. You stop answering questions that don't deserve your voice. You stop justifying your growth to those stuck in emotional immaturity. You don't waste breath proving your peace is valid. You don't spend energy making others like a version of you that no longer exists. You simply live your truth fully, quietly, without regret. And yes, they'll talk. They'll say you've changed, lost your way, or were easier to control before. Deep down, they know you haven't gotten worse. You've become whole. And that wholeness threatens those who only loved your fragments. So let them misunderstand you. Let them judge from afar. Let them gossip while you grow. While they're talking, you're rising. You're healing. You're building. You're stepping deeper into the life that's always been yours. Every choice, every boundary, every unapologetic breath. And in that space, something miraculous unfolds. You begin to love yourself the way you once begged others to, without conditions, without reasons, without explanations. You owe no one anything but your truth. You've said enough. You've defended your heart. You've explained your peace to those who never wanted to hear it. Now, let silence speak. No more justifying your worth. No more explaining your growth. No more clarifying what should have been respected from the start. Some people don't deserve your words. They only deserve your absence. There's a power only silence can hold, not the silence of defeat, but of release. The silence of spiritual clarity. The silence that says, I'm at peace with being misunderstood. I don't need your permission to be free. This silence terrifies those who control through guilt, manipulation, or chaos. Your words were once their excuse to deny, argue, distort, or manipulate. But now, with nothing to twist, nothing to attack, nothing to control, they're left with only your calm, your distance, your unshakable resolve. That speaks louder than any debate ever could. It says, I've outgrown this conversation. It says, your approval isn't my worth. It says, I'm not angry, I'm done. This is the final step of emotional wisdom, not reacting, not engaging, just observing and withdrawing. True strength isn't in dominating, it's in discipline. Silence is the most disciplined response. It doesn't prove. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't beg for understanding. It just walks away, letting the void speak for itself. Trust me, they'll hear it in your quiet absence. They'll hear every boundary you no longer need to explain. They'll feel every ounce of energy you've reclaimed. They'll face their own reality without your voice to soften the blow. And in that space, one of two things happens. They grow, or they stay bitter. Either way, it's no longer your burden. Healing isn't just about becoming whole. It's about letting go of the need to be understood by those who thrive on your wounds. Let them sit with your silence. Let them wrestle with their own noise. Let them wonder why their power over you vanished when you stopped speaking. That's when they'll see you were never the problem, you were the mirror. And the reflection was too real for them to bear. Here's your final reminder. You don't owe them your words, your closure, or another breath of justification. You owe yourself the protection of your peace, the honor of your truth, and a path walked with grace. Resolve and quiet fire. Let silence be your answer. Let your life be the proof. Let their confusion be the price they pay for underestimating your strength. You've explained enough. Now it's time to live your truth. You've spent too many years explaining to those who never listened. Too much energy translating your heart into words their egos refused to hear. But now you know, you don't need their understanding. You need your own freedom. And freedom begins when you stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself clearly. The shadows in others will always try to pull you into their chaos, but you weren't born to be trapped in their noise. You were born to rise in silence, to walk your path of truth, to become untouchable by their turmoil. From now on, you owe no explanations. You don't soften your truth to fit their comfort. You don't sacrifice your peace to ease their disorder. Let your silence echo. Let your energy speak louder than words. Let your presence be so clear, the world knows who you are without a single word. When they ask why you stopped responding, why you walked away, why you changed, just smile. Let silence be your final word. If this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your worth, your strength, your quiet fire, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video if you're done explaining. Subscribe to Think Stoic 101 if you're ready to reclaim your energy and walk in your truth. Comment below. I choose silence. I choose peace. I choose myself.